Gamsley, this is a
Yeah.
situation where the damage might be too severe for them to come back. I think we're going to get to Hargeet's point, which was masterful. You do the damage on something that you and your company are banking on in a big way, especially with PC. They do not forget. And there's always, you know, how like right now, as gamers, people are always going to hound Microsoft. Hey, you put 4 games, what's next? Hellblade 2, is that coming? That's always going to be a conversation. Well, the same way that's a conversation for Xbox. And they kind of did that to themselves. Well, now it's a conversation that's going to happen with Sony. When they go to put out a game, people are not even going to be excited for the game. They're going to want to know if they're going to have to link an account or create one from jump. And there's going to be that hesitation of whether or not I should invest in this game on PC. What do you think? Do you think the damage is done?
Well, to that point, I think, I mean, it works out for them anyway. I mean, if they maybe lose a sale, but it probably drives them to a place that, I mean, if they truly want a game that's powerful enough, I mean, a PlayStation will be bought somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know how much they truly lose. But is the damage done permanently? Um, I I don't think so. Like in all our like uh how do you say comparisons, like the cyberpunk thing, the cyberpunk thing was devastating. The No Man's Sky thing was devastating to those companies, and they're small, not small, but you know what I mean, in comparison to a Sony, which has an exceptional track record, and their fans are ravenous and weirdos that just support anything. So, I mean, on PC, maybe there's the hesitation. I would say hesitation is the proper word. I don't think repairable is the thing. I think they're gonna be fine. Like, one great game's gonna come out again, and it's gonna be fine. Again, in the Cyberpunk situation and in the No Man's Sky situation, these developers put out good content. They kept pumping through. They were transparent. They kept unleashing content and fixing things, and this is gonna be a pretty easy fix. It's not even 72 hours. Everything's yeah, for some people it's done. It's refunded, but it's not a big enough number to move the needle there. I don't think. And respectably, I mean, consumers sometimes they flip flop. They flip flop all the time. They hate Xbox one day and they're buying things on PC and it's all Xbox stuff. They're going to Game Pass on PC. It's maybe hurt them a little bit with this specific title, but no, I don't think so as a total, as a studio and as a platform. I don't think this hurts them in the long run. Little stumble. Sorry if that's controversial, but I think it's a little stumble that's not big enough to really, move anything forward. But Keasante, what we should be talking about is that guy is so smart, because I think if we stand on our ground and actually care about, all this stuff and put our money and our opinions out there in a big way, it's telling Sony, yo, like, stand on your ground. If you want this to be a bigger thing than it is right now, the only way it's going to blow up is if you stand your ground and you be like, yeah, I'm not buying this game. I'm not rebuying this game. I'm not telling my friends to buy this game. Hurt them as much as possible and be like, yeah, I don't care that Sony fixed this until they fix the reach of their platform. So the reach of the platform should be fixed. The reach of the platform should be broadened. We should be able to make accounts in these certain areas, and until that's fixed, I'm not going to support the thing. If people do that, which I don't think they will, because I'm skeptical with consumers,
Okay, fair.
then they move the needle and it will be fixed, and Sony won't get the pass, because right now all I see is them getting the pass, right? All I see on socials is them getting the pass of being like, yeah, they fixed it. Oh my god! And then all the big news outlets are like, yeah, ho ho, 2 seconds, and they fixed it. Yay, yay, Sony! It's a good move. And it's just like, yeah, well, like Asante said, well, yeah, that's not the deeper thing here. So it's really, it's almost impossible to see until the next game comes and Tsushima comes and all these other games come, and we'll see how the consumers react to it. But as of right now, I don't think they're hurt.
Okay, I mean it's a fair point. I'm not going to argue with you. I will give you a little pushback, but I'm definitely not going to argue with it because again, consumers are fickle, right? Some people have great memories and they don't forget, and others are like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to go back and buy the game. I got it on sale.
Or
Maybe
keep
Steam
it,
puts
or
it on
keep the
sale or
game,
something,
right?
or in fact keep the game instead of returning it. So there's that absolutely. Crispy Bomb, I want to bring you into the conversation. Where I think that this is ultimately going to be a continued problem is something that Kay Asante brought into light. Let's just say, for instance, we give them the pass. I'm not giving them a pass. Some people will give them a pass. There are still today 177 countries that cannot link and create a PSN account.
That's where the problem should be fixed.
Right. It absolutely should be fixed there. But see, this is why I think there is going to be a problem for Sony. And I think they have hurt themselves in a way that I don't know if they can recover until that problem is fixed. Because here's the thing, Crispy Bomb, Ghost of Tsushima is scheduled to release. It's a big game. It's an amazing game. So much so, I platinum that gladly and happily when it first released. That for multiplayer is going to require a PSN account. What happens to the 177 countries that cannot link an account without using a VPN? That is lost sales. That to me will hurt Sony. And now people are going to look at them with a crooked eye. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let's be honest for a second. I mean, look at what Sony does. They do single player games. So Helldivers 2 was one of the what we'd call the light on the hill that says, hey, we can make multiplayer or we can fund said multiplayer game. One or the other, whichever way you want to look at it. The fact is that most Steam players, and this is coming from my son, love playing multiplayer. Okay? That's one of their jams. If it doesn't have mods like Fallout or something like that, if it doesn't have, different things to experience, they gravitate towards multiplayer. And what Sony has done is said, Helldivers 2, we just let y'all know that multiplayer games in 177 countries, we don't care. Okay? And they might have reversed course, but I haven't seen the ramifications of it because I follow people that are in said countries. So I look at that and I say, okay, great. You reverse course. That's awesome. Does that damage the brand? I mean, we're talking about Ghost of Tsushima, okay? And if you have a multiplayer involved and you're separating, it's like when we used to download games, single player or multiplayer. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like you are just getting your foot into the PC gaming market. Microsoft been doing this for a long time. They've been doing it since Gears 1, people. Okay? They have brought games to it and then they brought it back. But this is before what social media is today. Now you're looking at an ecosystem that you can't trust. That's the way some of these PC gamers are looking at. And can I disagree? Can I say you should trust Microsoft more? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they have done something that is considered egregious in that said market. And that market happens to be the tentpole of the entire game itself, as far as being a multiplayer gas game. All right? So instead of saying, look, if you link your PSN to Steam, you get said great, like, unique, thing that you get, like gun, skin, whatever it may be. If you look at that and you say, okay, that's cool, but they said no, you have to. And I think that's something hopefully they learn. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think they are. I think that was a half-hearted statement on the fact that they screwed up. They know they did because, like Hargeet said, they lost money. And they know they lost money because if they don't cooperate with what Steam has done, they're never going to have a leg to stand on in the PC space. And what I've said before, and I'll say again, PlayStation can't make a damn multiplayer game. And this was the one, and they absolutely destroyed it. And the problem is all these PlayStation gamers that sit there and talk all this ish and say, oh, you guys are being Karens and crybabies. No. We're talking about people that purchased the game that couldn't continue playing it unless they linked an account that they can't get. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about all this other stuff. Okay? Like, y'all can sit here and throw shade at nothing. I get it. I get you. You love your plastic box. I'm gonna tell you right now, if Xbox did this, I'm not down for it. But Xbox has been releasing multiplayer games for years on PC. 4 years. And they have fumbled. Absolutely. I have watched it. It wasn't like this. It wasn't saying you can't play the game unless you subscribe to something that you can't use technically. So that's where we went and said a few days ago, data driven. It's about data. So they reversed it, but you don't think they're going to do it again? You really don't? I mean, they're going to put it out front this time. But for a single player game, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be for a single player game. Why do they need your data for a single player game on Steam? Makes absolutely no sense. All right?
I agree.
So we look at that and you say, okay, well, people are going to be like, oh, Microsoft's been doing this for years. Yeah, no shit. They've been up front about it. They want you on PlayStation to make a Microsoft account. Oh, how about that? All right, up front on the pre-orders, because everybody was whining about it, and I laughed at them. I said, hello, this is what they do. They're a data-driven company. They are, they develop games, and they don't really care about hardware. Hello, that's what they've done their entire existence. I played on MS-DOS games, okay, like Solitaire and stuff like that. Like, I understand this stuff. Maybe you don't, all right? And then people just shut up because they know it's true, and they've probably done the research. PC gamers are fickle beasts. They say, you know what? I can't be down for this because you've never done this before. And on top of that, they're like, PlayStation, you haven't been in our ecosystem for years, so how dare they be mad about what they're trying to do? I mean, PlayStation needs to look at it and actually correct themselves and say, you know what? Let's provide an incentive to become a part of PSN. Because I'm going to tell you right now, after 5 hacks, why the hell would I want to be a part of PSN? And I'm on Xbox. Why the heck would a PC gamer want to be a part of that as well? And that's the way I look at it.
I mean, it's a great take. It's a great point. Obviously, I mean, I've said it for years. PSN is being held together by bubblegum and toothpicks, and it's just they haven't changed anything for the better. And if you are a PC player that is, someone that worries about security because, well, you're on PC, I wouldn't be very comfortable giving PSN any of my information. Fuzzy Belvedere, now obviously we heard Gamsley, who had a great opinion. We
Mhm.
heard Crispy Bomb had a great opinion. I'm interested to hear yours though, because I think that when you look at the fact that there are 177 countries that will not be able to link PSN accounts because they can't make one. What does that ultimately say for the sales of Ghost of Tsushima and other games moving forward that are going to require people to make these accounts? And where we're going to start getting into the kind of the muddy waters here is if Sony turns around and says, "Hey, those 177 countries, don't worry about it. You don't got to you don't have to make an account because you can't make one." And they're going to force others in other countries that to do it. It's going to be an even bigger problem. This is where I think the damage is done. What do you think?
I mean, it's definitely going to be harder for them to kind of keep track of all of that. Like the big thing that they're going to wind up bumping into is always whenever a game comes out, making sure these regions are locked to, requiring the link, and then these other ones are excluded. Um, it's a definite gray area that I don't think they're going to want to deal with. But as far as for Helldivers, I think it will take a little bit of a hit after probably 3 to 6 months, especially if they start giving away more skins or add more modes that are more fun or something like that. I think they'll be able to rebound to some extent. But as far as like with Ghost of Tsushima, I don't think it's going to hurt sales on that quite as much because of it being more of a single player. Not to call out the PlayStation guys, but there aren't that many that are even playing Legends, or at least ones that I'm friends with that are vocal on Twitter. A lot of them didn't bother with Legends, so I don't really see it being something that will have a lot of people gravitating to as much as like with Helldivers in comparison. So the sales on Ghost of Tsushima, I don't think will take the hit. But when we start talking about like future, gas games like Fair Game or Concord, I think that's where they better have something in the tuck as far as how to have those countries either taken care of to be able to create accounts, or have a better implementation as far as the linking of accounts, or just having it where you purchase it on Steam, you link it to PSN, but it's just basically creating a placeholder account through Steam or whatever, and go from there. And you'll just be listed as like Steam customer 1275 or something along those lines kind of deal. But it's going to be a rougher road, and hopefully within the next couple of releases they get it all figured out. But I think Ghost of Tsushima will be fine. I think a lot of their single players that might have a multiplayer aspect to it or a co-op aspect to it will be fine. Like Returnal has co-op, and I don't really hear too many people buzzing about that anymore. Yeah, it's a couple of years old now, but even with them adding things like co-op to a game later, which Spider-Man 2 would be a perfect game to add co-op to later type of deal. But
Yep.
we'll see if that's even on the table or something. But it just feels like Sony's going to learn the hard way, one way or another. They're going to try this with Fair Game. If the servers aren't up to par when it comes to doing that on launch day, are we going to have another situation where they temporarily disable it and then we have this all over again? Or the same thing with Concord? Is this going to be a repeat process type of deal? But yeah, for their sake, they better get something figured out. But long-term wise, if they don't, then they're kind of wasting efforts going into the PC market without having, plans in place to cover more regions. While some of those regions may not be the biggest regions as far as customer base, why turn away $1 at that point? I mean, yeah, it costs money to get all these systems in place, but if you're going to get the systems in place for all the other regions, the additional cost should be negligible to the point where it's worthwhile having those extra users that you could potentially sell more games to. So we'll see.
Hey, great points all around. Game Pass Dad, let's get your take on this. Is the damage done? Can they recover from this?
I mean, Sony definitely shot themselves in the foot with this one. I don't feel like any of this was necessary. I don't really understand what they thought the reaction of this was going to be when they just said, hey, we're going to go ahead and make this a requirement now. Like it obviously was a not very well thought through move on their point, and definitely I think at worst they chose to do this, and the reaction from the community highlighted how much distaste like they had for it, and I think it highlights some of the ways that Sony likes to make decisions about their games that maybe even some of their most loyal fans don't really pay attention to. But the more often they do things like that, like this, the more often gamers will have a chance to question whether or not PlayStation is really the best place to be. As far as Helldivers is concerned, I feel that it could have been a lot worse. There's probably a subset of people that probably will not play the game again, or some people that might have gotten their returns and decided they've had enough Helldivers. Like me personally, I'll probably play the game as long as I don't have to set up a PSN account, but it made me actually sit here and think like, well, I've already played like 80 hours of the game. I had fun, but if they're going to make people do this, like I could happily step away and have enjoyed my time. So I do feel like there's a certain subset of people that just might not revisit this game for a long time until there's like a major update. But on the flip side, I think the damage is mainly Sony's. Like Arrowhead has been doing a great job with the game, keeping it updated. I do know that there's some issues. Like I haven't really followed it very closely, but I know that some of the issues with back and forth, I think the CEO is about 50-50 on the way he responded to it. But I believe there's some issues with the way that the community managers reacted to this, and some of the ways that they had talked to the community, or just not been very receptive or properly trained to just not say dumb things. Like, because there were some pretty egregious things. I can't really think of any specifics, but I just know.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. They didn't know that, like, how it would affect like those
Right.
177 countries. Like they
Right.
didn't understand that, and now they do. And I think that's
Yeah.
where like it wasn't like, you know, like malicious. It was more
Which
like, hey, I saw what I saw.
completely,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Right. Which I mean, I at the very least, like as a community manager though, like the last thing you want to do is just be like, hey, deal with it. Like, I mean, I think they did the right thing in pointing towards being like, hey, this is Sony's decision. The CEO like took responsibility and was like, hey, we knew 6 months before launch that this was going to be a requirement, and we should have been much more vocal for our PC people as to like plans for bringing this to effect, instead of just turning it back on one day. Because there's definitely like a billion different ways it could have been handled more appropriately. Would the game have popped off as crazy as it did without, like, or if it did still have that PSN requirement? I don't know if that would have necessarily slowed it down, but I'm sure that would possibly give some people some pause if they realized that. But at the very least, if it had been in place from the beginning, you would make that choice when you decide to play the game, instead of once you're already invested. And like, because I mean, I bought the game and I've spent like, I don't know, I upgraded it to the Super Citizen Edition. I've bought additional like super credits. Like, it's not like I've been invested myself, which I'm not going to say it's like the craziest end of the world thing, or that I'm really butthurt about it, but just like I really don't want to set up a PSN account if I don't have to. Like that's just where I'm at with it. So I do feel that it makes me distrust Sony a little bit as to how they're going to deal with their messaging going forward. It kind of makes me a little bit disappointed in Arrowhead, but I feel they have the opportunity to turn it around, because aside from this, they've been doing a great job with managing their game. They provided a great game at a great price with a good value, and it's an amazing co-op experience. And they've been keeping, like, they even do different things just with how they, like, we all know how they manage the active battles, and just keep it interesting and fresh and balanced and updated. And as well as like the price for cosmetics and their battle passes are reasonable. Like there's almost no reason, if you're playing the game constantly, not to spend $5 to $10 here and there and be able to get like almost all of the unlocks and cosmetics, whereas like any other games as a service is like, no, that'll be $25 for that one set of skins. Like I feel like they've been doing everything right in that respect. So I do feel like there's a chance that they could really turn this around. But I don't necessarily trust Sony to not try and ruin it just for in the name of profit again.